Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Ringmasters of Review, your PPV and PLE reviews for all the wrestling. I am Mikey, and joined with me is the rest of the table for two plus you review, as we are reviewing Impact's pay per view Turning Point from Friday, November 3rd, 2023. Gentlemen, I'm so excited to review another Impact pay per view. We were literally just here like 3 weeks ago. But I'm never going to complain about reviewing Impact pay per views. But joining me as always, first and foremost, I'm going to start with you, Will. Will, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Hello.
I can't wait to talk about this one for you. And of course, joining us as always is our other co host, Andrew, my friend. How are we doing?
Good, good. Yeah, this is a fun show. I'm excited.
I cannot wait to talk about it. So, overall, I thought this was a really fun show. And this was taped while the Impact gang was all in the UK during their UK tour. And they just happened to say, hey, let's have a pay per view here. And on paper, everything looked really fun. And then once I got done with the paper, I feel like, this is a lot of fun. Bound for Glory was amazing. And this was just a lot of fun. I'm like, Impact's kind of two in a row for me right now. This was a lot of fun. And I can't wait to talk about it. So let's just jump right in. So we open up Turning Point with a tag team match where we see Josh Alexander take on Subculture. I was, I was not ready. I'm like, holy crap! Did they start off with a bang?
Yeah, they did. I was like, well done, guys. Well done.
I mean, the fact that as soon as Josh Alexander was in the ring, even when he was in there before the start of the match with Subculture, they were chanting "Walking Weapon." Josh Alexander is just so over with the Impact crowd right now. It's like he just picked up where he left off. It's awesome.
Before we get into the intricacies of this match, I want to shout out the crowd for Turning Point. Like, listen, I don't know what it is about international audiences, but they bring something different. We saw it here. We saw it for other companies that went to Wembley, WWE, and the Backlash Puerto Rico crowd was bananas. And I'm ashamed of American audiences. I'm like, how come you guys can't be like that all the time? Like, what is wrong with you?
I feel like every show I see that's from Japan is got crazy audience involved. Like it's just it's such a appreciation for what the wrestlers do. It's awesome.
Agreed. So back to the match itself. Again, the as you said, Andrew, Josh Alexander is such a beloved talent for Impact, and the crowd was behind him. And I have to say, like, I knew Subculture was going to bring their brand of wrestling, which is very high flying. Uh, I was very surprised of how much they actually were using more grounded techniques to keep Josh and Eric Young like grounded, and they didn't let up.
Yeah, I thought it was great how as the match progressed, we saw more and more like fluidity with the quote unquote new Team Canada. And they kind of developed their own style. They're kind of this like hard hitting, there wasn't this like rapid in and out tagging, but it was like clean, clear. They took their time, they worked well together. And they used their obvious size advantage over Subculture. So I'm enjoying it. And I kind of hope we get to see more of this tag team because I think they're a really fun team to tag together.
Absolutely. Will, what did you think of our opening bout?
Well, I loved it. It was so good. You know, I wasn't sure how Josh and Eric were going to perform together because and I was very surprised. They were really good together. I was like, okay, I think there was only one moment where there was a bit of a misjudgment, but other than that, thought I thought they were pretty smooth, and of course, uh, and going up against Subculture, who I really like too. I mean, I really enjoy their style as well. And I thought that the two teams were pretty evenly matched. And I think that the whole night was kind of like that. Like everybody was well matched this whole pay per view. Um, and I loved the everything was fluid. I think I was messaging Mikey a couple of times. It's like everything feels so fluid. It feels so like pretty. Like everything just worked. And I think that when things work like a well-oiled machine, I enjoyed it. I was just like I was just like glued to it and I didn't know who was going to win. I was kind of like, oh, okay, come on, I need my people to win. I chose you. Come on now, and then they did, but it could have. I think it could have gone either way. I mean, pretty easily. But I really liked it. It was good. It was really good. It was a great way to
Right.
start the night.
I loved those double sharpshooter.
Oh, that was
Such
so
a great,
good.
such a fun moment. It was so good. Uh, I felt like Alexander and Young were having a fun time. Like they were getting to. I mean, everyone was having a good time, but they really seemed to be like enjoying getting to do this like different aspect that isn't the like we're going for the title or we're in this big
Mhm.
feuds or whatever. They're just getting to have fun wrestling out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like the audience, like a lot of the audience, is ready for TNA. Like
Oh
so
yeah.
much of the night, like yeah.
The
So
chanting and everything.
uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So good. Of course, as we stated, Josh Alexander and Eric Young pick up their win, so they were able to get a win after losing to the Motor City Machine Guns on Thursday's episode. So it was really fun to see. And without, missing a beat, we jump straight into our next match where we see Giselle Shaw taking on Alex Windsor. I had to it's because of the opening package and then also commentary that I forgot that Giselle got a lot of her start in Progress here in the UK. And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, I forget that she pretty much wrestled mostly for Progress and then she was signed to Impact and came on over. I was like, "Huh." And listen, I know Giselle can wrestle, but my god. Like I was like, "Oh my god, I forgot how good she is cuz this she showed up and she showed out for me personally." I'm like, "Giselle." I was like, "Oh, this is the Giselle I love to see."
And Alex Windsor, like I mean, this match just it impressed me so much with both of them. It was great to see. Like it was one of those things I love when I watch a match and no matter who wins, I want to see more from both the competitors. And that's how I felt after this. It was such a good back and forth. They each got moments to shine. And they did such a good job of showing that history of like this feud. And according to the commentary, they're now 2-2 against each other. So let's see that tiebreaker match. I'm down for it.
Yeah. These two. Yeah, I literally the one note I wrote down was I want to see more of these women. I loved this match. It was so great. And yeah, you're right, Giselle. I love Giselle. I love her. And I didn't know much about Alex Windsor. I'd heard of Alex Windsor, but I didn't know much about her. And so I went and did my research as I normally do. And I was like, oh, okay, I think this is going to be like Giselle's going to go in and just like knock her down and be done. And I think this match went on 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it
And
was
that
good.
was like, I was like, wow. Like Alex, she held her own. I was like, very nice. I thought this again, it was evenly matched, even though I was going into it thinking that Giselle was just going to be like overpowering and just sort of like wipe the floor with her. But no, man, they both came out of their corners just rocking and knocking, and I was like, this was such a fun match to watch. I was like, I want to see more of these ladies because man, they were on it. It was on fire. I loved it.
I agree. I think for me too, what I love seeing about this is because not to say this is the first time ever, but it was nice to see just Giselle and not have Savannah and Jay Vidal in tow in the sense that I love the shenanigans the three of them as a faction bring, and of course, Savannah and Jay, like even the odds in Giselle's matches. But I love that I was reminded in this match that Giselle can do both. She can use her teammates as shenanigans to help her win, but when it's just one on one with her in the ring, she has the skills to back it up as well. And it was nice to be reminded that Giselle actually can, with whether it's with help or without help, Giselle has this in the bag. Like she will wrestle and she will do whatever it takes to win. And she proved that because she picked up the win over Alex Windsor. And it's like, Will, you said this match was only about 10 minutes, but I was captivated the entire time.
Yeah, the whole time I was like, wow, wow. And I also have to say that I think this venue, I love this venue.
Mhm.
It is because it's so much more intimate than their normal place,
Mhm.
and it just really just like accentuates the performance. I mean, it's just I all of these. I mean, and I look back and I was like, is it just? I mean, what is it? And I went back and I looked at some of the clips from the past pay per views in the states, and I'm like the arenas are so massive that the it's in stage, like when you're on stage, you have that give and take from the audience, and I think the audience being so close and so intimate, there's such a great like feeding off of one another. That's why I think and plus the crowds are so amazing here, and it's just like that the performance is so intense, and it's so just I don't know. It's just this. I love this space. I was just like in all of these matches. I was like, God, you could feel the energy just sort of just surging through the space. And I loved it. And this was one of the it was 10 minutes, yeah, but man, it felt like an epic battle, and I think that's because of the intimacy of the space, and I loved it. I just man, all and you're going to get that from me for all of these matches all night.
It was a nice way. It kept up the energy of the first match, which was great.
Yeah,
Especially considering who you had in the first match. You had four really recognizable names, and then you go to a singles match, and it just kept that energy going. I agree about the space too. There's like so much less room between the barricade and the ring. When you look at the size of the audience, like the crowds there, even though you can see the back wall of the space that they're performing in, it looks like it's filled, like there's just full of people. It feels so dense, and everyone is so hyped about it that yeah, the energy is, it just carries on through.
I agree. And I really I feel like we as wrestling fans tend to get spoiled a lot because especially all of us here at the Biconics, we watch pretty much everything on the weekly television. So we get the smaller venues to the larger venues. But there's always something about the international shows in terms of because usually the international stuff, unless it's like giant stadiums, are a lot more on the more intimate scale. And I think that's what added to my overall enjoyment for Turning Point is just how intimate this venue was. It's like I feel like I'm watching so fun so really quick funny story. There used to be a lot of wrestling companies that would come to the local high schools where I live at, and that's like one of my favorite memories is going to these local high schools to see like these traveling like independent promotions like in the high school gyms. I was like, this is what it felt like. Now, granted, this is more well produced than a high school gym show, but the intimacy of those shows that I went to, like there was a sense of nostalgia for me watching this. So it's like, oh yeah, this reminds me of like when I was in high school and I watched these like traveling promotions come through my small little town. It was so good. So Giselle picks up the win here. Both of these ladies killed it. Now, like Andrew, like you said, now they're 2-2. Now I need to see a tiebreaker match down the line at some point. I want to. Somebody needs to get that third win, and I can't wait for that one. So we get our first backstage segment of the night where we see one Mr. Simon Miller in all his bald head glory. So I want to start off by saying that this is going to be the first time that we're going to disagree on some stuff because Will was messaging me earlier, and you know what? I'm gonna start with the positives. So I like Simon Miller. I forgot that his wrestling character, as lovable and goofy as he is as an internet personality, I forgot that his wrestling character is a total turd. He's a heel. So it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But basically, this backstage segment just was a promo because him and Joe Hendry used to be friends, and now they're gonna go out. Simon's gonna go out and destroy him, and that he's better than Joe. He's gonna prove that tonight. And I was like, no, you're not, Simon. But it was a fun little promo. So I'm gonna go to you first, Will. So we had a little bit of a difference of opinion.
What? I don't like the guy. I don't like him at all. I didn't know who he was, and I had to go look him up. And I watched some of his stuff, and I don't like him. I don't vibe with him. I don't like his vibe. It's I don't know. It feels dirty to me. I mean, just feels gross. I literally I watched like 4 clips, and I literally was like, I need to take a shower or something. It's just gross. I just don't. And then he's in this pay per view, and listening to him talk here, I was just like, man, there's nothing about you I like. Like, not even this character you're portraying. The character is like horrific, which is great. I mean, I guess that's what it's supposed to be, but even then, I'm just like, wow, you're an arrogant shit. And I don't like that. I don't like personalities like that. That's just me as a human being. I don't like those personalities. They tend to rub me the wrong way. So when I come across this, I was just like, I don't like this guy. I don't like him. I don't like him. We would not be friends. And I'm okay with that. I'm sure he's okay with it too. But yeah, no, don't like him. Don't like him at all. Not at all.
And
So that's
and like I told you, I was just like, that is very fair, and we're not going to agree on everything, but I appreciate the difference of opinion though, because it makes life more interesting that way. So we're going to talk more about Simon when we get to this match, but next up, so commentary, I had to replay the first couple of minutes again because commentary kind of lost me. I was like, wait, how did we describe this? Oh, this is an X Division showcase match. Okay, I was like, can't. I was like, because at first I caught them using the verbiage. I was like, you want to say this is the number one contendership match, but you didn't. But you said this was the showcase. I'm like, this is probably going to turn into a number one contendership situation down the line because Chris Sabin needs to defend that title against somebody. So this was a showcase match which had Rich Swann taking on Trey Miguel. Anytime these two get into the ring, I'm excited because I know they're gonna give me all the high flying stuff I want. And the comedy. This is the other thing too I really loved about this match is just like the small nuances that both Rich Swann and Trey Miguel give, especially Trey. I'm just like, nobody talks about the like small comedic moments, and I'm gonna talk about that more when we get to our other tag team match of the night. But I really enjoyed this. This was beautiful to watch in the sense that everything just flowed together right, and it was a perfect mixture of wrestling and high flying stuff. I loved it.
Uh, I actually had some mixed feelings about this match. For me, I don't know if it was where the excitement that I had coming out of the last two matches, but it felt a little slow in the start, especially for what I was expecting of these two. But as the match continued on, we got about the halfway point, maybe a little bit farther. Then it started to pick up, and I really started getting into it, and I got kind of pumped up by the match. By the end, everything was good, and I thought it was a pretty solid match. But I did notice some strangeness about the end of the match.
I was gonna say the ending to this match was kind of weird. I'm like, I feel like either the ref counted wrong or somebody didn't kick out on time.
Yeah. Or someone wasn't supposed to kick out and they did, kind of.
Mm,
But it was weird. It was weird. Even commentary commented on it, so it was like,
yeah, that's the only critique I have about this match. The ending kind of was weird about it.
yeah, I agree. Now I think it's planting a seed. It's like suddenly Trey Miguel could be like, wait a minute, this happened and that's not right, and I think we should have a rematch or we should have some sort of thing. I mean, it's it's great television, but I agree it was a weirdness at the end. I was like, because I went back and watched it a couple of times more, and I was like, to me it looks like he had lifted that shoulder before that third count
Yeah.
happened. So I was sort of like, ooh, okay. So I mean, but then of course the referee's call is the call, and I was just like, that was the wrong call, dude.
Yeah.
I really believe it was the wrong call. But yeah, I mean this match was weird. I mean, it was still, I think that energy was still high, and we were still riding that wave. But I don't know, there was something odd about it, and I can't put my finger on it. But I was just like, it did this. There was, that whole thing of one of these things is not like the other. This was that one for me, and I don't know what it was. I don't know, because I think I think they're both good wrestlers. Trey Miguel's fun. Uh, and the funny thing is, I like him as an individual and not as a tag team person. Like, I hate him when he's in tag team, but I love him as an individual wrestler. And it's so funny. But I was like, I enjoyed it, but I was just like, this just feels off to me, and I don't know what it was, and I don't know, I
Yeah.
can't explain.
I wonder if the last minute change of this match, because originally it was supposed to be Kazarian was involved in this match too. I wonder if that threw some stuff off, but
Maybe,
it did also feel like there was. It felt like they put the match together, and then they were like, "Oh, hey, all of these guys have wrestled in the X division. Let's call it that." And maybe there could have been another more, another driving match in its place or something. I mean, they did well, but yeah, it did kind of feel like you said it's different than the rest. But
yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I still enjoyed the match, but for me personally, I think this was probably my least favorite. But even that's not a bad thing to say for me personally, because I think through and through this whole card was a lot of fun. But yeah, the ending was kind of weird. So I'm interested to see if we play off of that down the road, like leading to final resolution or even hard to kill. But we shall see what happens with that. Rich Swan picks up the victory here over Trey. Trey can't catch a break because he keeps losing.
I know.
poor Trey.
I know. I was actually very surprised by the outcome of this match. I was very surprised.
I thought Trey was at least going to get a win here, but no, he keeps losing.
They're
Oh
building
my,
him up to something big.
I hope so. Honestly, I would love to see Trey, even if it's a one-off, like go after for the world title, because that is a title he has yet to go for and challenge for yet. Because it's either the tag team or the X Division Championship, or even digital media championship. I think would be kind of fun too. Let the Rascals be your digital media champion and just do weird things with it online. So funny. So we go from this match, we quickly go backstage again. This time we see the subculture boys like being the hype man in the background for Danny Luna, who gives this promo. And listen, I'm just gonna put this out there. Impact, if we don't get Danny Luna back on Impact Television anytime soon, it will be a travesty because this promo was a lot of fun for me. And I love the fact that she threw in like the real life stuff that people say. She's like, people compare me and Jordan Grace all the time because we're both petite, we're both strong, we're both amazing wrestlers. But tonight, I'm going to prove that I am not another Jordan Grace. I am the one and only Danny Luna. I'm going to prove that tonight. I was like, you go, Danny. And I love the subculture boys are just quiet in the background, just hyping her up. It's this faction rules. I was like, they hype each other up so much. I'm like, I want to be a subculture person. I want to be hyped up like that. Life would be so much fun if we all had our own hype men and hype women. Then, so I can't speak for my other boys. We get into this next match, Danny Luna versus Jordan Grace. For me personally, this was my match of the night. Holy crap.
Yeah,
For me,
yeah,
I love Danny. I love Jordan. Again, they both are very strong and they showed off their power. The double headbutt to where they both headbutted each other and then knocked each other out on the apron was great. The backslide, like kind of tombstone slash muscle buster that
oh, yeah.
Jordan did to Danny was vicious. and of course, I always pop hard for the the driver Jordan has as a
Yeah.
finisher.
Oh
Well, and that pull through the ropes German by Danny
Woo!
and
Yes!
deadlift suplex she hit on Jordan.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
this was one of the top matches for me of the night. It you hear a lot about the big beefy boys matches, when we get the big men fighting, but this was like the big beefy women. Like it was just two powerhouses, and it was awesome to see them because they both like they just went out there and were just strong, and it was great to see, especially because obviously Jordan currently in her career is at such a height, and Danny Luna, is like the newer one coming in. So to see them almost kind of as equals in this match, it was awesome to see and really give Danny Luna a chance to shine, but then also make Jordan look, even stronger by once again overcoming somebody who can match her strength.
yeah, this was like watching two, two brick shit houses going at each other. God, it was massive. I mean, it's so funny as ever. Like we're so petite. I'm like, you guys are built like brick shit houses. They're like, bam. And I was just like, I'm sorry, when they were lifting each other, and I was just like, I have never in my life wanted to be a lesbian more, because I was like, oh my, I think if I were a lesbian, and me being the big G in the LGBT, if I were a lesbian, I think this is the type of woman I'd go for. I really do.
Listen, I can't speak for Andrew here, but every time I'm like Danny Luna, I'm like Jordan, I'm like, you can suplex me any day, deadlift me all you want.
I mean,
Like,
it was
except for Jordan
just
Grace, I'm not trying to fight her husband because I think Jonathan Gresham would beat
right.
me in a fight.
That is well, any of them could beat me in a fight.
Or put me
Uh,
in the octopus.
I don't know. It was like the match was so good. I mean, this is in one of my top matches as well. It was just so. I loved it because, well, I loved it for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons I loved it is because Danny Luna was fighting to prove a point, and I loved that. I was like, you are literally trying to prove that you are not her. It's like, and I loved it. And I mean, she was countering everything, and she was doing all this. Man, it was so good. It was such a good match, and again, it's again evenly matched. It flowed well. The energy was high. We're maintaining that flow of energy. The crowd was crazy. It was. I mean, it was just. It was top notch for me. It was top notch. Top notch.
I was I was really happy. And honestly, for me, this is the perfect place I would have put it in the card too. Because this was like right in the middle. You had the first three matches, and then this woke the crowd up again, which would help for what we got afterwards. But again, Jordan picks up the win here, continuing to make her look strong. But the only way I could summarize this is Impact. I need you to run it back again. Give me another match between these two. Give it 5 more minutes. And if Danny is okay with it, travel, like bring her out to, I don't know, bring her out to one of the pay per views on in the States, man. Like, I run it back. I would love to see it. So from here, we jump into our next match, which is Simon Miller versus Joe Hendry, in which was a relatively, I think, the shortest match on the card, which makes sense because I love Simon Miller, but he's just barely like what, a year into his wrestling career at this point. I think a year and
I,
a half.
I think a little bit more because I know when I was watching him, because I started following him during like the shutdown, uh,
Mm,
and so I think he's been doing it for a while. But yeah, he's super fresh and obviously doesn't do it all the time.
right. So before the match even begins, Simon Miller is the first to come out. He cuts the heel promo out here. He's like, "I'm better than you. I'm better than the people in the audience, and I'm gonna be better than Joe Hendry." Will's favorite thing to see. But then as soon Joe Hendry appears on the Titantron, and this is what I've missed with Joe Hendry. Every time he is about to fight somebody, he creates like this DIY music video about his opponent.
So funny.
And I had to pause when the picture of Simon Miller with hair came up, and
Yes.
I was crying of laughter. Like, I I woke up the house, I think, with how loud I was being. I was like, "Oh, Joe Hendry, don't you ever change." And then as soon as the music video is open, Joe Hendry's theme music hits, he enters in, and I'm just like, "Oh." I was like, "You can't have Joe lose now." Like, you can't have him lose.
So are we just going to glaze by the fact that Simon Miller dropped the microphone like an idiot?
That was also very
I
funny.
was just like,
I love that they went with it
I
though.
did
I
too. Oh,
love
I thought it was great.
yeah.
Improv.
Yeah.
It was so funny. I was like, wow. Trying to make a
Lo-
point there, didn't you?
I love that he broke character a little bit too, because when the microphone dropped, he was trying not to smile and laugh about it.
Yeah. I gave him kudos for that. I was like, that was funny.
And of course, the music video was funny. Joe Hendry makes his entrance, and then again, match is what I expected. Joe Hendry picks up the victory here. Again, this was more of the comedy. I love when Simon Miller went to do the elbow drop, and Joe Hendry just like sat up out of the way, and just Simon just ate shit on the way down.
It's like the very end of the match too. It's like Joe Hendry just pops up out of nowhere, and it was like, and then he turned, and he was like, "That was great." Yeah,
See, I I really, especially having watched Simon Miller like do like his fitness positivity stuff and his like, videos and things like that. When you see him do more of his like not wrestling persona stuff, to see his portrayal as like a heel, it's so funny because it's totally the like I'm doing and saying everything that you don't think I should to make you not like me, and that's exactly what he's trying to portray. And I felt like it was such a good foil for Joe Hendry because literally, like, since I finished watching this card, since this point in the card, I've had his theme song stuck in my head. Like, it's just so infectious, and so I thought they did a great job, like really balancing that out and adding the fun to it while getting to hit some big fun spots too, and kind of give Simon some chances to do a few things, and then obviously using a lot of Hendry stuff to kind of carry the match the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree. This was I knew on paper, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be the fun part of the match. It's like, this is the fun part of the card where I'm not expecting a lot of crazy stuff. But it's really, really nice because, as we know, Joe and Simon are actually friends outside of this, and they've known each other for a very long time. And to see them play up this part, I love it so much. Of course, our boy Joe Hendry is just on a roll, picks up another victory. Not only does he beat Simon Miller, but he is also the winner of the Glasgow Cup from Thursday. So now I want this momentum to carry back when we get to the States. I'm like, please throw Joe Hendry into some. Listen, I'm ready for him to take on the X division. Like, him versus Saban is actually a match I kind of want to see now. Like, oof. But honestly, or get Joe Hendry a couple wins and then have him challenge for. I don't want him going back to the Digital Media Championship quite yet, but get him ready for the X division. Like, I'm ready for Joe to go after some sort of title. As you know,
Go for
we.
X Division, then use option C and go for that world title.
Ooh, yes. I'm ready for a Joe Hendry world title run at some point. I'm super excited. So I want to take a moment. So I want to include this into the review and my co-host can comment on it. Normally we don't do like the commercial spots or let's take a look at what they did in the UK, but I wanted to bring this up because I really enjoyed this. So after the match, we got a little sneak peek and a recap of while they were there and the Impact crew were having fun. They were also doing work because they held their annual gut check, which is where they basically had tryouts and basically the winners of these tryouts would get a chance to go train in the dojo and then potentially get an Impact Wrestling contract depending on how well they progress. And for me, I love it because it does remind it's reminiscent of like when WWE used to do Tough Enough, and then the first what 3 seasons of NXT when it was the game show where they took these independent talent and the winner would get a like contract with WWE. And I love that we got insight. So it's like Scott Demore, Gail Kim, and I also love seeing the wrestlers be there also to be on as extra eyes. So Josh, Eric, all that good stuff. And we got to see like the process. They do in ring, they do promo stuff. I was like, this is great. And then we're even shown and told who wins. So on the men's side, we have Mike D from Belgium, and I was just like, he's so aggressive. I'm kind of here for it. But then my little heart pitter pattered watching, Harley Hudson like cry because, she got picked for the women's side from Liverpool. Yeah, so congratulations to Mike D from Belgium and Harley Hudson from Liverpool. I really hope they do well in the dojo because based on the aesthetics alone and their personalities, I'm like, oh, I would love to see them be a part of Impact going forward. And especially Harley, I'm like, we need some more. We need more knockouts in the knockout division. Like, bring some more people over, please.
When we got to see Mike D in the countdown show, uh,
That's right,
yeah, he was one half of the tag team that fought Grado and Rhino.
Rhino.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it
I
was
love
awesome
that.
to get to see that process. Yeah, I got choked up when Harley Hudson was talking to, like, when you see people genuinely like emotional about something that they're passionate about, it's just hard not to like get excited for them.
Mhm.
Uh, so to get to see both of them get these options, these opportunities to like, make the career that they're working for. And earlier we got to see the signing, the new signee too, for
Of
the
Leon, yeah.
yeah. So I thought it was really cool to see some of those things where they were like, "Hey, we not only came over here and worked with this talent, but we were impressed by a few of them and want to bring them over and give them more chances," which is great.
And I love when the companies show these kinds of things because they remind me of, you know, this is a dream and a career for a lot of these folks. And to be able to get signed to an actual promotion like that is steady income, a steady job, and like they can do this all the time. It makes me really happy. From there, then we get into another fun tag team match for me, the most professional wrestling gods, which is Moose and Brian Myers taking on the change up of the team of Frankie Kazarian and Chris Sabin because it was supposed to be the Motor City Machine Guns with Alex Shelley, but because of a slight injury that occurred during the Thursday taping show, Alex Shelley is sitting out because we don't want him to have to give up the title like Josh and Macklin had to when they won it. And so at first I wasn't sure how was going to work. I was like, oh, I'm like, I know Kazarian and Saban have been wrestling for a long time, so I'm sure they could do it. But I don't know how they're going to work together as a team. And obviously, I was proven wrong. This was a lot of fun, especially again. Frankie Kazarian, once again for me, was MVP in this match. I was just like, where has this Frankie been the last couple of months? I'm like, they should have separated him and Eddie sooner because if this is what was waiting afterwards, we should have ended that feud earlier than it did.
Agreed. It was so good. I was so surprised and pleasantly so. I talking. I think I was messaging Mikey about it. I was just like, I like this version of Frankie, just like I like this version of Eddie. What we've seen of him so far, and so I'm so glad that this stupid feud is over because now we can actually see them as solo fighters and see what they're really capable of when they're not all emotionally compromised with each other. And I agree. I thought he and Chris worked very well together in this match, like really well together. Because I was a little concerned too, because I was like, oh, Shelly's not in there, so they're just going to put somebody in, and I was like, oh, the chemistry's going to be weird, but no, it really wasn't. I mean, I am by no means a tag team expert, but I thought they worked pretty darn well together for just being kind of put together and say go. And I thought they held their own pretty well. So, I mean, Moose and Myers were, of course, amazing like they always are, um, but my eyes were on Chris and Frankie because I was so like, "Ooh, how's this gonna work?" And then I was just so amazed watching them work together. I was just like, "Wow!" I mean, have they ever worked together in the past that you know of?
I don't think as a tag team.
Okay,
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
wow.
I
Well,
think
then
they've
that
wrestled each other quite a bit because of being in the X division, and they've just been around in Impact for so long. But I don't think they've ever tagged together
well,
because.
that
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, then that makes it even more impressive
Mhm.
because I thought, well, maybe they had fought together at some point,
Mhm.
but if they hadn't, wow. So that makes it even more impressive to me. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, I was kind of interested because they. I wonder if they're going to do any more with them, or if this was a test out to see if, like, hey, maybe we'll do some more because they kept commentary kept putting out there that they were calling themselves the Futures as like a tag team name, and so I was like, all right, you went and gave them a name, and they're matching up gear style and everything. So I'm like, are we going to see some stuff with them? Is this like, hey, we hadn't thought about this yet, but this could be a fun little story run for Saban and Kazarian. But yeah, they definitely held their own with Myers and Moose, who they don't tag all the time, but they obviously work together a lot of the time. And so they came out of there looking like a really solid tag team, and it's kind of fun to see these various Impact TNA veterans like making these new tag team formations and having them work really well. And I think part of the reason they do is because they're all veterans. They're all so good at what they do that it's like they just got to kind of learn each other, and then once they got that, they're golden. It was a great match. It was another one of my top matches,
Yeah,
and
mine too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I really hope that we see them do more together. I really hope that that's something that's happening. I think that this whole changing back to TNA is really kind of gotten everybody re-energized, and I kind of like that. And like you're right, like new alliances are forming, and new teams are suddenly sprouting, and so I agree. I kind of hope that Chris and Frankie do some more tag team stuff together because I really enjoyed watching them fight in this match. So, but yeah, this was also one of my tops of the night.
And again, Moose picks up the victory here. And again, you continue to get wins for Moose because he is cashing in his Feast or Fired match at Hard to Kill. So I'm excited for Moose and Alex Shelley as of right now of who's going to be holding that title going into Hard to Kill. But we never know. I'm just gonna put it out there. As much as I would love to see Moose and Alex Shelley, I would love to see Trinity and Jordan be the main event for Hard to Kill because on paper that match makes me really, really excited. Um, but speaking of Trinity, so next up as our semi-main event, we have a Knockouts champion for the Knockouts championship. We have Trinity defending her title against Deonna Purrazzo. And the stipulation, well, there's two things. First, the stipulation is if Deonna can't pull the win here and reclaim the title, she can no longer challenge for the Knockouts championship so long as Trinity holds onto it. So until Trinity loses that title, Deonna cannot challenge for it again until Trinity loses it to somebody else. The second point of order here is that our special guest referee for this match is the one and only Miss Gail Kim. And I love that she got her own entrance before the
yeah,
wrestlers too. And I was just like, that's how you do it. This is how guests. And she killed it. She walked out. She did a whole entire turn. Like her
hmm
theme music played. I was like, I I might be biased, but I think Gail Kim is one of my favorite women's wrestlers, period, across like women's wrestling history. And I still stand on the hill that she and Awesome Kong like helped put women's wrestling for TNA on the map, and it's become a blueprint for not just the Impact girls, but for women's wrestling in general.
Well, and it's funny because Gail Kim started out in WWE, right?
She started
Um,
there.
and I feel like she had a similar run to a lot of especially the women that came from WWE. You look at like even to today, like Trinity, but Mickey James and different knockouts throughout that kind of generation through today worked there, didn't weren't even given the chance to work to their real potential, came into TNA Impact and just like revolutionized women's wrestling and
Mhm.
just brought new facets to wrestling in general, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Ooh, even your dogs got excited.
It really did.
I loved it. So, we can now talk about the match. So, honestly, okay, so I wanna start off with the positives. I really enjoyed this match. I knew it Trinity and Deanna round 3 I was excited for. I will say they did a lot more submission based and mat style wrestling for this one, which I thought was great because this is Deanna's wheelhouse. She knows a lot of submissions and her mat wrestling's great. But I liked it even more because it allowed me to see Trinity kind of match that a little bit because I'm used to Trinity doing the more aerial and off the rope type of stuff, but her submissions are good. And I mean this as a positive, but for me personally, I think this is probably in my number 3 spot in terms of how I would order their trilogy that they've had between this, Slammiversary, and the other and where else did they fight? Now I'm blanking.
Emergence.
I think Emergence, yeah. So between Slammiversary, Emergence, and here, I would rank this as probably like the third of the 3, but I still overall enjoyed it. Now, the more important point of the talking point for me is after the match of what happened. But I want to allow my co-hosts to kind of get their thoughts in with Trinity and Dion before we talk about that ending.
Yeah, I this match was slower than I expected. I expected it to have a lot more just momentum going through it. Like you said, it wasn't bad in the sense of it wasn't the kind of slow that was boring. It was just not the like intensity that I expected, but it was nice to see Deanna kind of play to her wheelhouse because it feels like the first two were so high energy that it did lend itself more towards Trinity. But then, after they got through it for a while, they had some really fun sequences, and eventually it picked up to get to that ending, which I was a little surprised how, and it was another one of those like hit multiple moves to get the victory, but I was surprised at how definitive, I guess, that Trinity won. Um, because I felt like it was going to be a bigger struggle, especially with the what's on the line for Diana. But I wasn't surprised by the outcome. I kind of expected this, and I think it gives them both. It sets up Trinity to have other feuds with folks, and it gives a reason why Deanna's not in the title picture, and allows her to kind of rebuild herself back up and have some fun feuds with other people that don't have to have the title involved.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I thought that um, I thought this was slower than the rest. I agree with that. I felt that it was. I don't think it was bad. I just felt that it was a little. The energy was still high, but it was like there were. It was. I don't know. It felt a little slower than everything else, and I think that I felt that it was a Diana match. Like it was specifically kind of focused on her. Like it was like, this is your last chance. This is it. So we're going to focus everything on you, and and you're fighting Trinity, but we're focusing on you. Is what it really felt like. And Mikey, you know me, I hate submissions. I think it's a cop out. It is such a cop out. I hate submission moves. I hate them so much. And I was like, when the submission happened, I was like, no, 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 no. This should have been a pinfall match. This should have been a pinfall match. not a submission match, because I think that it's because submissions are just so like I won, but not really. And I just hate that. I really hate it. It just Michael,
So
Mike, you know how it just gets on my nerves.
I understand and see your
Ugh.
point and your opinion is validated.
Ugh.
I don't mind submissions if it makes sense in the story. I will say though, for me, I do kind of wish that Trinity won via a pin because the last two times that Deanna and Trinity have fought, Trinity has tapped her out. Which, listen, I love the first time I was thrilled. I was like, yes, you make Deanna tap because Deanna rarely taps for anybody. Like that was awesome. Second time I was like, okay, that's cool. But then to see Deanna tap again a third time, I'm like, okay, we're kind of pushing it for me because and I Deanna, I know it has a wide range of things that she can do, and mm, I don't mind submissions, but I hate the storylines of just like you keep getting submitted. So yeah, no.
See, I'm in a very different wheelhouse. I love submission wrestling. I one of my favorite wrestlers. So he, my two favorite wrestlers are Shawn Michaels, like of all time, Shawn Michaels and Dean Malenko. And Dean Malenko is, the man of a thousand holds. I love his wrestling style. I love all the submission wrestlers that they have now with Angelico has his unique submission styles. And then, the pure in ROH, that whole division. Um, so I've always been a fan of it. But I do agree that a pinfall would have served them both more because then we show a different wrinkle in Trinity's, kind of game. We show like, oh, she can tap you out, she can knock you out. She can just beat you in any way that she needs to. And it could have made, because now Deanna's coming out of this. She's tapped a Trinity 3 times. She's lost her last 3 championship matches. And she tapped out in this one. I would have liked to have seen her to the point where it didn't matter if she gave up or not. She just wasn't conscious. She got put out and lost the match. So yeah, I do agree in that aspect that a different outcome would have been nice. But yeah, I gotta say I enjoy the catch wrestling.
And see, that's what makes this trio awesome because we can agree on stuff and we're respectful when we disagree or we have a differing appearance. Take notes, internet wrestling community. You can have conversations about things that you have differing opinions on. Just putting it out there.
Absolutely. So yeah, I completely disagree with that, but I don't hate anybody for it. It's like I don't hate you. It's like that's it. I'm done. This is
Yeah,
it.
I was
I'm
like,
over it.
all
I'm
right,
out of here.
guys.
It's like it's like I don't understand why people get so bent out of damn shape. It's like okay, that's cool. I hate submissions. Andrew loves them. That's awesome. I have no anger towards him. And it's so funny that you're right though. The internet and wrestling community that gets so worked up, and it's like, just why? You all love the same thing. Why are you hating on each other? I don't get it. It's so stupid.
I don't know.
It's like being
I
mad
don't know.
that someone likes a flavor of ice cream and you like a different flavor of ice cream, and you're like, first of all, there's so many flavors, we can all like different kinds, and at the end of the day, it's all ice cream. Like,
I
be happy
know,
that we
right?
get it. Like,
Exactly.
I
How
was like,
dare
everyone.
you like that flavor?
Yep. I'm like, everybody needs to stop complaining about this. So
Seriously, it's so dumb.
it is. So from that conversation, we jump into the main event,
wait, wait,
which
wait, wait. You
go
forgot
ahead.
the end of this match.
Oh yeah, the end of this
Oh,
match.
that's right. Oh, how silly of me, because this is important.
Yeah,
So
it
Yes.
is.
Trinity is, Trinity is celebrating the ring. Deanna is not having it. She's not having it, and she's like, "No." I was like, "Up, this is it's we are officially back to heel Deanna, which I'm kind of here for." And so she is like trashy Trinity, and Gail stops her. Deanna puts her hands on Gail, and Gail hits her finisher on Deanna. And I'm like, she put her hands on Gail, and Gail gave it to her, and was like, confirm Deanna versus Gail at some point, please.
All I know is when Deanna slapped Gail,
Yeah.
well, that's it for you, girl. You're going down. As she did, she put her down so quick. I was like, ooh. I was like, girl, that's just embarrassing. You need to stop.
Yeah.
Stop. You're just embarrassing yourself. Stop it.
That that ending took this match from like I was like, all right, this was a fun, good match. The ending sequence was a lot of fun, and then just took it up to that next
Yeah.
level. It
Yeah,
was
it
so
did.
good,
It
so
was my
good.
favorite moment of the night.
Yep.
It was
Agreed.
my absolute favorite moment of the night.
I'm like, they need to capitalize. So whether it's at Final Resolution or
Yeah,
uh,
I
uh,
agree.
for me personally, I was just like, put this on Final Resolution or Hard to Kill. As much as
Yeah.
I would love to see it on a weekly television show, this deserve is
No,
Gail
this is gotta
Kim.
be a pay per
She and
view.
Deanna deserve a pay per view.
Yeah, because you can't just
Yeah,
leave that hanging
Nah.
because it's just hanging
build.
in the universe.
Yeah, you build to that
Yep.
match between the two of them. Put it on Final Resolution, and give them some chance to promo off of each other, get in each other's way a little bit. Build up that tension and
Oh
frustration,
yeah. Oh
and then that
yeah.
match we'll get between the two of them is going to be so good.
It will be amazing.
Yeah, I apologize to Gail and Deanna for almost glossing over that fact, but I am really excited for the build up for that. It's going to be great. So now I can say it. Now we have hit the main event, which is a match between Eddie Edwards versus Will Ospreay. I want to first by saying, as soon as this match ended and I saw how much of a time we have left, I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do? Like, we got like 5 minutes left. Like, I was like, okay, and so that was towards the end. I will say, I like this match, but in the sense that is not like how normally I've seen people talk about this match. I liked it in the sense because we got to see two different sides of Will Ospreay and the opponents he's faced. I feel like Will versus Mike was Will wrestling the future of this business because Mike, while he's been wrestling for like 6 to 7 years at this point, and he's a really fleshed out, really good wrestler, he's still very young in his career. Like, I don't his ceiling has not hit the ceiling yet. He's gonna crash through that thing at some point, and I can't wait to see it. Whereas with this match, we saw Will wrestle the I mean, it's still a nice term to use. He wrestled a veteran. Like,
Mhm.
Eddie has been doing this for a very long time. And my God, again, this match made me like Eddie even more. Same thing how the Joe Hendry versus Frankie match on Thursday made me like that version of Frankie. Will pulled out my favorite version of Eddie, and I haven't seen this version of Eddie in a very long time. And oh my goodness, this I will say I knew Will was going to win, but my God, Eddie made Will work for that
Work for
win.
it. Yeah, he did. And it's funny because originally I really wanted the Trinity, Deanna match to be the main event. But after I saw this match, I was like, no, this needed to be the main event.
Mhm.
This was so good. And this and I agree with you, Mikey, that watching him fight Eddie did have a different feel than when he was fighting the last time. And I loved I love this version of Eddie because Eddie was fighting for his home. Like, it was personal. The other fight with Osprey's other fight with Mike was professional.
Mhm.
This was personal. And I really liked that. And I thought this match was so good. I was not sure what it was going to be because and this is because of all that crap with between Frankie and Eddie, and we saw how, and I was like, God, they're not very good wrestlers. And then we see them individually when Frankie and Joe Hendry, and then Eddie with Will, and I was just like, oh my God, they're good wrestlers. Why the hell would they do that to them in that ridiculous feud story? I didn't now I'm just in my brain going, why the hell did they even do that crap? I don't get it because this Eddie and this Frankie are these are the ones I want to see more of. I want to see this because I thought this was my match of the night because man, because you're right, Will was fighting a different fight this time around. This was and I think honestly, I think this was a much harder match for Will than the one he fought with Mike. Because he was fighting an opponent who was like, I'm not giving up my home ground. And personal fights are always more brutal than professional ones. So all of the everything that was happening in this match was just electric. And it was like, man, Eddie really turned me. Like I am truly like team Eddie now. And I hated him during that whole feud thing. I hated him. And now I'm just like, okay, this is an Eddie I can get behind. This one right here. This one I will be in your corner for a while now until you like piss me off and then I have to hate you again. But right now, this is my house. These are my people. I'm protecting that. I'm good. I'm here for you, man. I'm here for it. And this match was electric. It was just electric.
Yeah, I agree. This was my match of the night. It edged out Danny Luna and Jordan Grace. That was right behind it. Up until this point, that match would have been my match of the night. Um, I feel like now, having seen two of his three announced matches in Impact, I feel like what Impact is doing is they're helping Will Ospreay build up his uh, kind of portfolio of matches for people who have not been able to catch him as much in his New Japan stuff. So a lot of the audiences that aren't as familiar with him or don't get to see him as regularly. I mean, we got to see him against Mike Bailey, and it was him versus another high flyer, high speed competitor. In this one, he stood up to Eddie Edwards, who I expected Edwards was going to come out and be the hard nose, like turning a fight into a brawl kind of thing. And instead, what we saw was Eddie had to dig down and fight as hard as he could because Osprey was there for it. Osprey got to be dirty, and I don't mean like cheating dirty, but like gritty. He took those chops from Eddie. He took everything Eddie would throw at him. He messed with Eddie's mind early on in the match. And I feel like then what we're going to get to see after this is when Osprey faces Alexander, is we're going to get to see the technical side of Will Osprey, and he obviously uses all those in his matches, but each one he has to dig into that toolbox to almost beat his opponent at their game. Um, and the finishing few minutes of this match were incredible. The way they went back and forth, and there was even a spot, like one moment when I thought Eddie was going to win. Like he hit a move, and the ref was coming down with that three, and I was like, "Where is he gonna?" Oh, okay,
Oh
all right.
yeah.
So I thought this was great. It was a great way to end the night. It made total sense for where they were. And yeah, I am interested now to see where Eddie's going to go from this, especially because he's clearly going to be, one of those faces for TNA, being that having that history he has with them. So it was great use for both of them.
I really enjoyed this match. I had a tough time picking between this and then Danny Luna and Jordan for my match of the night, but I'm gonna say Danny and Jordan was probably my favorite, only because I knew Eddie and Will were going to deliver because Will's Will, and then Eddie has been wrestling for a very long time, and he's a consummate professional. It's just that I like Jordan and Danny a little bit more, only because this is really the first kind of interaction that they've had wrestling against each other, which made me excited. But the match itself was amazing. So like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But just like the ending to, with Deanna and Gail Kim, the ending speech that Will gave after the match was said and done, listen, I'm a fan of Will Ospreay as a wrestler. This made me a fan of this kid. And like, you know, my biggest issue is like when a lot of wrestlers say, "Oh, I watched this when I was a kid." I was like, "Okay, you're kind of phoning it in a little bit." Like, I'm pretty sure you watched it, but you're using it to gain sympathy. But I don't know, man. The way that how Will said it and just how he presented it to the crowd, it made me truly believe. And my God, he praised Impact and what they're doing to high heaven. Like I literally took notes to this, and I apologize to Will if someone sends him this or he sees this, but I summarized it where TNA made 15-year-old me fall in love with wrestling, and Impact is bringing eyes, and I am a big supporter of Impact because what they're doing is bringing a small crowd size to that smaller like wrestling style, the smaller venue to worldwide audience. That is why I do what I do, because it showed me that doesn't matter whether a company is big or small, like Impact is doing the work to bring the big energy to the smallness of how they are as a company. But what I loved is even before that, he was being the troll because he's like, guys, I have an announcement to make. I finally got my kitchen done.
Yeah. I thought he was going to announce it. He had me. I was like, "Oh, this is happening. This is happening." Oh god, he got me. He got me with that one.
Right. And we can talk a little bit about after we recap the speech, because I have feelings on where Will's going to sign when his contract in New Japan ends in February. But Will made me tear up a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, help! Like, you made me. This is why I love professional wrestling. I was like, you could tell that he cares. He cares about what he does for a living, and he takes this seriously. And honestly, again, I like Will Ospreay the wrestler, but this made me love th- this coupled with his interview he did with Renee like last year. It made me love him as the person even more, because a lot of wrestlers say that they do this and then this is their life. No, Will Ospreay means it. This is his blood, sweat, and tears, and he loves what he does. And I love the fact that he thanked all the talent in the back. He thanked Impact. He thanked the crowd. Like, he plays a heel most of the time, and he's kind of like an overconfident dick as a character. But this makes me like him even more in the sense because this is the real person. This is the grown adult from that 15-year-old kid who watched AJ Styles wrestle in TNA and made him decide this is what he wanted to do for a living. I can go on and on, but I want to give you two an opportunity to kind of speak on Will's like closing statement before Turning Point went off the air.
Um, I mean, I loved it. It started out with such a good, swerve with what he was announcing, but when he really got into the meat and potatoes of his speech, the you could tell the genuine like appreciation he had for everyone that was working there to put the show on, whether it was talent or production. How much he appreciates the fans, like throughout the whole match, how he just like fed off of the fans energy. And so you get this sense that he's genuine about being a fan of wrestling first and getting to become a professional wrestler, which I feel like is going to connect with most of the wrestling fans, because most of us get involved, become fans of it when we're relatively younger. It holds a certain magic to us. So when we get older, you know, we have that appreciation of it. And seeing someone that we see as a star having that fandom for the thing that they're creating, it just enables you to connect to them. It humanizes them. Um, and yeah, it was awesome to see from him. I would love to. I feel like if TNA Impact could make the right offer, he might sign with them just for how much he loves that company. Um, but wherever he goes, man, this guy's a star. Like no questions about it, and for years to come.
Yeah. Um, moments like this, I love moments like this because we see the human being and not the character, and we get the from the heart speeches, like, and I love that. I love when someone says, this is what brought me here, this is what keeps me here, this is what makes me strive to be here, and I love that. And I thought Will did a great job at that. I thought he was sincere, and I was touched by it. And because I'm a softie, I'm a sensitive guy, so when they get into those sensitive areas and they're talking about all this, this, that, and the other, it chokes me up as well. And I got a little choked up because I was like, gosh, that's amazing. You could truly tell that he cares about what he does. It's not just a hobby. It's like his life, and I love that. And I like him as a person and a wrestler. He just seems very sincere to me in all aspects, and I love that. And I thought, yeah, this was extremely. I thought it was a great way to end the night. That sort of inspiration, and you can kind of feel it in the crowd too. I think the crowd really kind of went with him, and the energy, you could feel that energy happy, that the change in that energy, and it was really nice. It was very, very nice. I really liked it a lot.
Agreed. And I think my favorite part of that whole entire speech is towards the end where Will says, "Come February, regardless of what I decide, I know that TNA is going to be a driving force, bringing a spotlight to wrestlers of all shapes and sizes." It's essentially what he said. And that I'm Will Ospreay and I am the best. And then he sent the crowd home happy. And that is how Turning Point goes off of the air. So, last thing we have to do, unfortunately, is to give our final rating of this pay per view. This this show went by really quick, just like this review did. I was surprised. This was a really enjoyable card. Um, I'll go first. Turning Point, given the fact that we were just 3 weeks out of Bound for Glory, and then coming in to see a rejuvenated Impact locker room. Minus my nitpicks here and there, I'm gonna actually give this like a solid 7.8 out of 10 for me. And that's still a pretty good score. I will say nothing's going to come close to my rating I gave for Bound for Glory because that was a big four pay per view, so it's not fair to compare. But think for a card that was kind of built over the last 3 or 4 weeks or so, and
Mhm.
just again, it was just a different energy that both the UK talent and our Impact talent brought to the show was just so different. They were rejuvenated. They had a different perspective. And it's like what both of you said. I think with the over the horizon with TNA coming back, I think it has reinvigorated the locker, and it showed throughout this whole entire card. Of course, I did have some critiques of it. I thought the ending to the Rich Swann Trey Miguel match was kind of weird. I did wish that Deanna didn't tap and get submitted for a third time. It would have been different. But other than my nitpicks, I thought this was an awesome show. So I give this 7.8. Andrew, I'm going to come to you next. What do you give Turning Point? What is your rating?
It was different than Bound for Glory. Bound for Glory definitely had a big promotion feel to it, but I liked the feel that this had. It had more of that indie big card, feature to it. But with the not that those are bad, but the height that the performers are at in this. For me, this was an 8.4, so a B for me. This it didn't quite reach the level. I think I gave a 9 to Bound for Glory. So this was pretty close for me. There were some really good matches on here, especially with some of the people that we, haven't seen before or not familiar with as much. And some unique matchups too with some of the tag teams that got put together. But I thought this was awesome. I'm feeling each week, really since Bound for Glory, I'm just looking forward to the next Impact Wrestling that I get to watch. And I feel like with what we've been told so far, I feel like I'm going to be feeling that way up until we get to, the rebirth of TNA in January. So I'm pumped.
Love it. Will, what do you give
Hmm.
Turning Point?
Well, I gave Turning Point an 8.5. I thought that it flowed well. I thought the energy was high throughout, even in the quote unquote low spots. The energy was still pretty good. I thought all the wrestlers did very well. I thought all the matches went well. Even the lower of the ones were still good. So I thought overall, I really enjoyed this one. I really did. I mean, yes, Bound for Glory was fantastic, but you know, apples to oranges, I suppose. But this one was really good, and I thought it was well programmed. I thought it was, the wrestlers seemed to be enjoying themselves. The audience was enjoying themselves. So overall, I didn't feel that there was really any low points. I mean, other than some technical stuff here and there, but overall, I didn't think there was any low points in this particular pay per view. So I gave it an 8.5.
Awesome. Well, boys, unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of this edition of Ringmasters of Review. And I love anytime I get to hang out with my Impact crew because we always have a good time. But fear not, for those of you who stay tuned all the way through to the review, thank you so much. We will be back in about a couple of weeks, give or take, for the Impact Crew because Final Resolution is December 9th. So we will start to slowly be building to the final pay per view of 2023 for Impact, as well as the final pay per view underneath the current Impact name. Because come January, we will be back at it again with the first rebranded TNA pay per view of Hard to Kill. But the road to Final Resolution begins, and I cannot wait to get to there. If you enjoyed this pay per view review, make sure to subscribe to the Biconics YouTube wrestling channel, where we cover all the weekly television shows and pretty much all of the pay per views too. So it's a great time. If you want to follow us all over the social medias, you can look us up at BC WrestlePod to get notifications on when these videos go live, as well as some behind the scenes shenanigans and some out of context clips and some meme stuff. So that's listen, we're entertaining regardless of what we do. So you should join us for all the craziness. And then make sure to subscribe to our podcast, the Biconics Wrestling Podcast, where we're kind of slowly building up towards the end of the year because we're about to hit our final show. It come December because that's the big one where we take a look at wrestling back in 2023, and then we all have to make the dreaded decision of who was the best and who was the worst individually. So, uh, make sure you stay tuned for and look out for that episode because we all gonna fight. It's gonna be great. But until then, from myself, Will, and Andrew, as well as the rest of the Biconic guys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, stay Biconic, you beautiful bastards. Until the next review, we'll catch you later. But until then, ta ta for now.